Hello, Year 6. Hope you had a good weekend. The weather's been really great, although yesterday it rained a bit, didn't it? But I tend to like the rain, so I wasn't fussed. Hope you had a restful weekend and got to do some nice things at least, even if it's at home. I'm back here to read you the next instalment of Journey to Joburg. Now let's just remind ourselves of what happened in the story. So we know there's two characters who are the main characters in the story. Their sister is really unwell, and they need to go and find their mum. And we know that because of apartheid, the system, because of poverty, their mum works somewhere else very, very far, 300 kilometers away, in fact. And they have decided, rightly or wrongly, that they want to go and find their mum. I say wrongly, just in the sense that, was that the most responsible thing to do if you're a child? But then again, we fully understand the fact that they're really desperate. They love their sister, and we would do anything, wouldn't we, for our own family to help them out. So just going to read A New Friend. As they turned towards the road, there was a bus with the word Parktown in big letters on the front. It was slowly down, a little way up the road, and the doors were opening. Through the front windscreen, they could see the driver was black. "Come on, Tiro," called Naledi, pulling him by the arm. They were just about to jump aboard when someone shouted at them in English, "What's wrong with you? Are you stupid?" Startled, they looked up at the angry face of the bus driver, and then at the bus again. White faces stared at them from inside as the bus moved off. Naledi and Tiro stood on the side of the road, shaken, holding hands tightly, when a voice behind them said, "Don't let it bother you. That's what they're like. You'd better come out of the road." A young woman put out her hand to bring them onto the pavement. "You must be strangers here if you don't know about the buses. This stop has a white sign, but we have to wait by the black one over there." She pointed to a small black metal signpost. "You must also look at the front of the bus, for the small notice says, 'Non-whites only.'" "I'm sorry, we forgot to look," Naledi explained. So here's a photo, an image of the woman with Naledi and Tiro. And just over here it says whites, that's the bus stop. And so just like as it was with in America with Rosa Parks when she was living there, and people had to travel in public transport separately, so there was buses for whites, buses for black people. The same thing happened in South Africa during apartheid. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if that was what it was like if we lived here? What if we had buses that said non-whites? And the reason why it said non-whites is because there were lots of different ethnicities that were not white that living within sort of South Africa. There's quite a lot of people of Indian origin there as well. So they just put them all together, as non-white, not good enough. You're not allowed to come on the buses. And so that's what it was like. And imagine how that must have felt. And I'm sort of imagining the humiliation they would have felt, the confusion they would have felt, to constantly have the color of your skin as the forefront of anything that's happening, making judgments over something that none of us have any control over. So it was, really horrible circumstances, terrible, unfair, unjust circumstances that people had to deal with. "I'm sorry, we forgot to look," Naledi explained. "It's not you who should be sorry," said the young woman forcefully. "They should be sorry, those stupid people. Why shouldn't we use any bus? When our buses are full, their buses are half empty. Don't you be sorry." The children glanced at each other. This person was different from their mother. Mama never spoke out like that. Naledi took out the letter, and when the young woman looked at the address, she exclaimed, "But this is near where my mother works. I'm on my way to visit her today, so I can show you the place." "Thank you, Mama." The children smiled, lucky again. So again, they're just like they called the truck driver like father. They're calling her Ma. "By the way, out of respect. By the way, I'm Grace Mabatha. Now, who are you both, and where are you from? You speak Swana the way my mother does. Maybe you live near my mother's people." So once again, the children began their story. Luckily, the bus wasn't full when it arrived. Grace had warned them that in the rush hour you were almost squeezed to death. As the bus trundled along, stopping and starting with the traffic, there was a chance to stare out of the windows. Tiro thought the cyclists were very brave, riding in between all the cars. Naledi kept trying to see the tops of the tall buildings, twisting her neck around until it had begun to hurt. So imagine, they've not really been to a city, have they? And so for them, these are new sights that they're looking at and taking in. The bus now heaved its way up a steep hill, and soon they were leaving the city buildings, seeing the sky again, as well as trees, grass lawns, and flowers either side of the road. Behind the trees were big houses, such as they had never seen before. Grace smiled at the way the children were staring, as if amazed. Don't you know the people in this place have a lot of money? My mother looks after 2 children in a very big house, and there is another person just to cook and another person to look after the garden. Naledi and Tiro listened with interest. Mama never really liked to talk much to them about her work when she was at home, although once they had overheard Mama talking to Nono about the child whom she looked after. Mama had said, "The little girl is very rude. She thinks I belong to her mother. You should hear how she can shout at me." Naledi wanted to ask Grace to tell them some more, but she was still a little shy, and soon they reached their stop. They stepped off the bus onto a wide pavement along a street lined with great leafy trees. "That's the road where your mother works, at number 25. Mama works at number 17 in the next road down there. Can you manage now?" The children nodded, and then Grace nodded. "If you need somewhere to stay tonight, you can come back to me to Soweto. I'm going home at 6 o'clock, okay?" Tiro and Naledi thanked Grace, although they were a little puzzled about needing somewhere to stay. After all, they would be with their mother now, and they would be going home with her as quickly as possible back to Dinio. As they turned to go down the road, they suddenly felt very excited and anxious too. So much had been happening that they hadn't been thinking all along of their little sister. Please let her be all right, now pounded in the lady's brain. Half walking, half running, they made it for number 25. So, finally, after 300 kilometers walking, managing to find a kind person who drove them all the way, and also then meeting Grace. So you're seeing that actually they're in need of people who are kind, who will help them, because these are young, vulnerable children who are out looking for their mother. And without the kindness of these individuals, it would have been a lot more difficult, and who knows what the outcomes would have been. But they managed to get to number 25. How do you think their mother is going to react when she sees them and when they tell her? And why do you think Grace said to them that they could go back and stay in Soweto and not with their mother, or not go back immediately? What do you think is going to happen next? I'd like you to think about that before tomorrow's story time. But I will see you tomorrow for the next chapter. And we don't have many chapters, actually. I think we're about halfway through the book. So I think it will take us this week and probably next week to finish off the story. But make sure you check out the website, check the Twitter, see Cyril Jackson Twitter account. Make sure you're checking what Mrs. Williams is putting up for English. She is putting up a copy of the chapter, so if you need it to reference it to go back, then you can do that. And obviously the reading is related to it. But I think the reading is for the earlier chapters. Okay, so take care, Year 6, and I will see you tomorrow.